raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
Sometimes a broken heart can feel as if someone has taken a baseball bat to it, the very moment that you would prefer to push away the nasty feelings that are eating you alive like fire ants, or the devastating feelings that make you think you never want to love again, or the red-faced, foolish feelings that heat up shame, is the moment your mindfulness practice can come to your aid. This is from an article on mindfulness and mending the broken heart, written by Elaine Smookler, our guest today on the Men Talking Mindfulness show. Welcome back to Men Talking Mindfulness. I'm John McCaskill, and each week my co-host Will Schneider and I work to break down and demystify an aspect of mindfulness and make it meaningful to you. This week, we're talking with Elaine Smookler about how to mend these inevitable broken hearts. Elaine is a registered psychotherapist, certified mindfulness teacher, life balance coach, keynote speaker, teacher, writer, singer, and comedic performer. For more than 20 years, Elaine has been shaking things up in the mindfulness world with her lively and unique programs through University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. These programs include Mindful Martinis, I love that name, Breathe In and Laugh Out, another name I love, and her long-running online course, A Mindful Way Through the Creative Process. Elaine also connects with those facing loss, grief, and stress, providing wellness programs for the staff, doctors, and parents of the Hospital for Sick Children, and has been an instructor at the University of Toronto Medical School. She provides ongoing clinical programs such as Mindfulness Based Cognitive Therapy, MBCT, and stress management for a wide variety of employee assistance programs. She writes the Inner Wisdom column at Mindful Magazine, which has over 750,000 monthly users, and is actually how we found her in looking for information about mindfulness and how it can help mend the broken heart, which again is what we're going to be discussing today. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Will for some announcements.
Hey, it's great to be back, everybody. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here. I'm just going to run through a few announcements, everybody. There is still some space for our Mindfulness Adventure Retreat. That's May 18th to the 21st in upstate New York. Move, breathe, and get mindful during this 4-day, 3-night immersive experience that includes a 4-week integration program, too. If you sign up before March 17th, you'll save $200. Head to mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat to book your spot before they're all gone. Help us grow the show by taking it a screenshot right now. Post it on your social and let the world know that you're becoming more mindful. And lastly, hit up our YouTube. We're growing over there on YouTube, which is exciting. We actually got a new editor, so we're increasing the quality of our videos. And you can find us on YouTube. And it's snowing right now, guys, in New York. This is awesome. I'm sorry. There's a moment here. I'm sorry. I did get very distracted, okay, because I'm excited for the snow. Okay, sorry, guys, sorry. Okay, so again, youtube.com/@mentalkingmindfulness. Don't mind my ADHD. This is why we have the grounding practice right now.
This is indeed.
So, John, why don't you lead that?
You want me to switch it up and I'll lead it?
I'm obviously a fucking hot mess again today. So, all good. So
I warned you, Elaine. I warned you. So here we go. So I'm here in Colorado Springs, where we've had a lot of snow recently. So I'm not getting distracted by the snow outside my window. So I will lead the practice. But I know I send pictures to Will all the time about the, with the snow. And he's always saying, oh my gosh, I love the snow. I can't wait to see the snow. And of course, here it is. It starts snowing as soon as he starts talking. So
and now it seems to be mostly gone, John. So now I'm upset. I'm going to grieve the loss of the snow. And we thank God we have Elaine here to help us through the grieving process. Okay, thank you. Let's ground.
All right. Let's do this. All right. So go ahead and get comfortable, and whatever is safe for you, go ahead and get into that position. Whatever is comfortable and safe. And if closing your eyes also feels comfortable and safe, then I invite you to do so. Otherwise, just soften your eyelids, soften your gaze, and let's bring our attention to our breath. We've just started doing 5 simple breaths, focusing on the physical aspects of the breath to kick the show off. So let's kick it off by breathing out as much air as we can together, emptying your lungs, bringing your navel to your spine. Deep breath in, filling from the bottom to the top. Hold at the top and release. All the way empty, empty, empty. That's 1. Deep breath in, ballooning those lungs, starting at the bottom and filling all the way up. Hold at the top and release, release, release. That's 2, 3 more. Deep breath in through your nose, inflating those lungs all the way to the top, and an extra sip at the top. Hold and let it go. Let it go. Let it go. 2 more. Deep breath in, noticing the air coming in through your nostrils, inflating those lungs all the way to the top. Hold at the top and release, release, release. Last one together. Deep breath in. Hold and relax, letting it go, letting it go, letting it go. And as you do so, start to blink your eyes open if they're closed. Otherwise, just refocus your gaze. Maybe bring some micro movements back into your body, moving your head around, your neck. I feel better. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to kick this off. All right.
Me too.
Go ahead, Will. You got something.
No, nothing. I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
All right.
Awesome. Elaine, why don't we just jump right in? So John, you wanted to get started about our own heartbreaks, romantic.
Yeah.
So, okay. Romantic failures, loss of loved ones. And I guess we can start there. Or how about this? Elaine, you're our guest. Do you feel that's the best place for us to start? You want to set a little bit of a baseline first, talking about grief and loss, or we can kind of jump into our own personal experiences and kind of take the conversation from there?
I like the idea of first thought, best thought. And since, Will, you had this inspiration to jump right into the story, that feels like the natural and organic flow. Please do.
Okay.
That will probably springboard our best conversation, is my guess.
Okay. Now I've got real nervous about talking.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I've kind of talked about this a few times on the episode or on our show a little bit, but I had a really incredible heartbreak that changed my life. I mean, I woke up, from this experience, or not even wake up from it. It took a long time to kind of drag me through this experience, but I was 27. I met an amazing woman. We had a fantastic relationship for, it wasn't even that long. It was like, 4 or 5 months. And it just, at that time in my life, as I kind of look back on it, like I didn't really know like who I was, what it was all about. And I think I put so much into this relationship, got really needy, and then it just kind of fell apart. And, I really loved this woman. In that loss, and it was just like, radio silence on her end. I was just kind of left alone, like to deal with this on my own. And the experience I had, and it lasted it took me about 9 months to kind of get over it. But those first few weeks and a couple months, I was like confused. I couldn't even hold a conversation. I was like completely unpresent in like almost every situation I was in, because there just seemed to be something working deeper in the background of like, it just kept fuck with me. It kept messing with me. It just really, really like hit me very, very, very hard on every single aspect of my life. And then once I kind of, I guess, went through the grieving process, we're going to talk about and what that looks like, what that sounds like, and what we can do about it. And then I was able to start to recalibrate and then find myself again after this experience. And it was just quite devastating. And and that's why I'm so glad you're here, Elaine, because it's like, why, how, like, what is it? We have in the notes here. It's like, what is it like when we get that that gut punch, like from losing somebody, whether it's a dear family member, which I've had those losses as well, or someone that you love deeply, or if you get divorced or going through some sort of separation after being with someone for a long time. Like I've seen people or heard people that, during a breakup, like, they actually vomit, it's like, which is a fascinating. Think about that. It's just like, there's a moment in life and it causes like such an incredible visceral reaction that, it leads to vomiting or purging or whatever, that kind of thing is. So that's my little story. I mean, and I'm also thankful for this relationship, because on the other side of it, like, I don't think I'd be in New York. Like, if I continued with that relationship, like, I still would have been lost and maybe would have found myself many years later. But I think this really catapulted me into, discovering who I am, working to discover more of who I am and what I want to do. And here we are, we're talking about it on a podcast right now with my boy John, and things that we love to do and are very passionate about. So that's kind of my story.
There you go. And I know you've talked about that before on the show, Will. And quite honestly, a lot of that is laid the foundation for you to become the man you are, and also to find mindfulness, right? I know that has a lot to do with that too. But Elaine, I'll jump in with my anecdotes, if you will, and then we'll turn it over to you to maybe touch on some of yours, and we can discuss how, maybe we mended our hearts correctly, maybe we didn't. I don't know. We can discuss a lot of things.
We still are. I feel like we're lying on the couch, like therapist Elaine. Sure. We're lying on the couch and we're just giving Elaine all of our stuff.
Yes, there we go. That's really why we called you on here, Elaine, was just to get some free psychotherapy.
Exactly. Thank you, John. You weren't supposed to say that. That's okay. Okay.
So I'm 45 years old and I've had my heart broken numerous times. It started with probably my first relationship back in high school. I was a sophomore dating a senior, and when she graduated, as what happens a lot, they move on, and they don't want to be dating a high schooler when they're in college. So that was my first heartbreak, and that was painful, and it took me quite a while to get over that. Then I had another 2-year relationship when I was in college. It was a long distance relationship with a girl from my hometown in Louisiana. But then when I went on to Navy SEAL training, I can't fault her for this. She actually wanted nothing to do with me anymore. She was like, "Hey, you know what? You're going to go off and do your thing. I've got to do mine." But that broke my heart. And I actually, for whether this is wrong or right, I actually used it for fuel. I used it for fuel in the training that I was doing. I turned inward and focused completely on the Navy SEAL training that I was in, and used it because I was like, well, if she left me because I was going to become a Navy SEAL, last thing I want to have happen is me not become one, and I lost this very valuable relationship. So I used that as fuel. I will admit I carried some of that heartache into my next relationship, which actually ended up being my first marriage. And I think that actually had a lot to do with the instability in my first marriage, because I was still healing and mending from this previous relationship. And then, I've got failures as well, not just romantic heartbreaks, but I've got failures, goals that I had set in my mind that I did not achieve. I've got goals that I'm still setting in my mind that I don't achieve. And I still go through regular heartbreaks on that. And then I've lost friends. Quite literally, I've lost them on the battlefield, or I've lost them because, I don't know, we just moved in different directions, literally or figuratively. I've got that heartbreak. I will admit, and Will and I are going to talk about this, I haven't lost anyone in my family, very close to my family. I've lost my grandparents, but I still have my parents. I've still got 3 older sisters and a younger brother. I've got my wife and 3 children, and I haven't lost anyone there yet. But I know that is tremendous heartbreak that a lot of our listeners have experienced: loss of members of their family, loss of children, loss of husbands, wives. So I'd love for us to stop talking as the host and turn it over to you, Elaine, and let's talk about one, the work that you do, and then 2, maybe some heartbreaks that you've experienced, and what kind of compelled you to write this article in Mindful.
Thank you so much, both of you. And needless to say, what a gift to everyone who's listening right now at your transparency and courage and willingness to be able to share these very awkward human moments. And one of the things that you, in particular, John, invoked was the notion of the Navy SEAL. And one of the reasons that I especially appreciate that you mentioned that is that sometimes we think, well, if only I were tougher, if only I were like tough as nails, then for sure that's not gonna happen to me.
Right.
And I just glanced over, since I didn't know anything about Will's background, but you had shared with me that that was one of the labels of your past. I did sort of take a brief look at the notion of the Navy SEAL, and I thought, wow, that is a very tough and hardy group of humans who are expected to perform at a very high level, but it doesn't matter. The significant part is the humans. And that my sense about what you're aiming for in this podcast is to help reconnect anyone who is interested in listening in what could that be for us if we could have the courage to allow vulnerability to break us open to the technicolor experience of life, which is so scary, but it's so vivid and worth it. And Will said something really important, right? Like, I took a couple of notes as you were talking because I'm a psychotherapist.
Exactly. I saw you. You were listening so intently. I was like, I see those therapist eyes. I see them. I think she's looking. She's piercing my soul right now.
You said something really important, and that was it changed your life. And so sometimes we don't, of course, one of the challenges of our typical human experience is we want to avoid discomfort. And so we will sometimes hold on to situations that are no longer fruitful. They're no longer alive. They're not really leading us in a direction that is actually of benefit to ourselves, but our fear-based mentality that can be there for even the hardiest of person. Like, that's what's so important. It's not a personal failing. Some of us still carry, the seeds of our child selves inside, and that kind of little vulnerability that, like, is anybody gonna love me if you don't love me? And that's, then what happens is sometimes we can talk about that as the soft spot, which is actually the most beautiful spot to be. That soft. John talks about having children. I don't know if Will has children, but I don't see how you could be a good father and husband if you do not have some connection to that soft spot. That is the tender spot of just being a raw human that lives, and sorry, spoiler alert, is dead at the end. It doesn't matter who you are gonna be dead. I'm sorry, like I said, I'll leave my lawyer's number, but you're
None
dead.
of us are getting out of this alive.
That's right. And so I find that extremely helpful, because it contextualizes these experiences, not like, well, I could have lived on until immortality if you hadn't have hurt my feelings or hurt me, rather than this is perhaps the very reason that we have life, is to go through these experiences and to learn and grow. And when I think about pain as an example, and I'll tell a story of my own, but when I think about pain, I think about diet, and how in the diet, anybody who knows anything about nutrition, a smooth, unless you've got like IBS or something, a smooth diet is not beneficial to good digestion. Like, if you eat all pre-digested smooth food, it's so unhealthy for your body. We inherently require roughage in our diet for health. Life experiences require adversity for us to keep up. It's so tempting to stay asleep. It's so tempting to cuddle into that perfect relationship that starts in infancy and is the nipple that doesn't quit. But is that really, truly what is most beneficial, that brings us into the electricity of being able to be a full-on human? So I feel, when I look at my own experiences, you asked me what prompted me to write that article. So I'm very privileged because I have a column in Mindful magazine, and I've had it for many years, and they allow me to look at my own personal experiences and write from there, because I've been a mindfulness practitioner for about 5,000 years. So I have I know I only live 4,000, but I actually have been here for 5,000 years, and I've done a lot of experiences. Oh, okay. So I see there's chats coming in too. Okay.
Yeah, there are.
Oh, okay. I just noticed that. Okay.
Yeah.
Lost both their birth parents at 17 months old. Oh my gosh. Adoptive father 60 years later. How about devastation? Right. So, okay. So maybe we'll get to be able to touch on. Thank you so much. Now, I hadn't noticed that there were comments coming in. So thank you so much for your willingness to share. That's very touching. So my own experience was I had a relationship. That's what I wrote about in that article. And I vividly remembered that feeling of heartbreak. And I can remember feeling like, oh, I see why they call it heartbreak, because my heart hurts. The muscle of my actual heart feels like it's getting smashed. And I was surprised at how visceral and physical it felt. Like, it wasn't just an emotional concept. It physically hurt. And what was so interesting for me from that experience was, as devastated as I felt, I don't want to say as I was, because it's really helpful when we can experience our emotions not as I am, as if that's me, I am angry. Well, are you angry, or are you just feeling anger? Like, anger is an energy. So I remember that extremely painful experience that seemed to just like explode and block out everything else. It was so crushing to feel rejected, basically, and it doesn't matter what the reasons were. It doesn't even matter if I contributed to it, which in that case I did. It still hurt. And this is something that we also need to look at: is pain. It's not about, oh, well, I hurt, I got over it. And that doesn't work like that. That's not how the body works with emotions. And we'll talk about that in a bit too. But similar to what Will said, that was one of the most important things that ever happened to me in my life, because of that experience, I left my kind of comfy diaper in Vancouver, which, I had a lot of good things going there. I was known and I had a life and got written about and blah, blah, blah. So for me to leave that really took a giant explosion, or I absolutely would have clung for dear life, because it hurt so much. I opened up in a way that I probably wouldn't have. And I made a choice to leave Vancouver and move back to my home city, where my parents were, in Toronto. And intriguingly, that was the beginning of a brand new life for me. Like, the person that I am today, I can trace back to that moment of heartbreak. And if it hadn't have been so painful, I wouldn't have gone. I would have found a way back. I would have clung. That's our tendency, is to cling to what we know, that, as it were, that what we know. So that's in terms of that story, that whole idea that we don't want to feel discomfort, which is what that is. But when we can recognize that this is breaking us open to new possibilities, we can feel that discomfort and not let it stop us. Feel adversity, note it. We're not trying to ignore it. This is what's really important. Like, when pain happens, the body handles thoughts differently than it handles emotions. Is it okay if I keep going? I know I'm talking.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Jump in when you want to interject. The body handles thoughts totally differently than it handles emotions. So a thought, that person hates me. If only I had done this better. Oh, why didn't I bring them tofu? I forgot they were vegan. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Like, why? I thought a burger was damn. We can look at our thoughts and try to spin ourselves around. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. But what I find so helpful, and this is a concept that comes from cognitive behavior therapy, it's so helpful when you can take your thoughts to court and say to yourself, okay, hang on. What evidence am I using to prove to myself that the reason that person broke up with me is because there was some defect in me? What evidence? Because they said it. Well, even if they say that, it still doesn't really mean that there's anything personal going on. We can take our thoughts, and should, I rarely use the word should, We can and really might wish to take our thoughts to court, always to ask ourselves, oh, interesting, what evidence am I using to believe this truth prison that I've locked myself in? Saying that, our emotions are not handled in that way. Our emotions are a consequence of whatever is triggered in a thought or an event, right? So if, I'm sure you all know the notion of fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Sure.
Right? This is a reptilian part of our brain. This is the survival mechanism in our brain. So good luck trying to get past this one. Like, I welcome you to try it. You might sugarcoat it and tell yourself, oh, that doesn't bug me. But that's just a sugarcoating, because the reality is probably underneath there's that ouch. So when our emotions are triggered because of a belief, right? We have an event and it activates a belief system. I'm not worthy of love. I smell. Oh shoot, if only I had brushed my teeth once, maybe I'd still have a relationship. Like, who knew? Who knew? Whatever, but those are really all just intellectual concepts. Nonetheless, when the body reacts and goes into the so-called fight, flight, freeze, fawn, there is an emotional chemical consequence. There's some super, I thought, interesting research from a researcher named Jill Bolte Taylor. Well, she talks about emotions having a 90-second chemical experience through the body. So it's like pushing a button, anger, energy, or anger, emotion, cortisol, adrenaline, those kinds of things, that they get triggered. They're triggered whether you want them to be or not. What's so interesting is this notion that if we could be present to the emotional chemical experience that's moving through our body and just allow and let be, which is a mindfulness kind of notion, right? Otherwise we're resisting and going back into fight, flight, freeze. But if we can allow and let be, we still might go, oh, like an animal, like, ow, ow, because we are animals. When we can be with the animal of ourselves in those, for even just an experiment of 90 seconds, without diving back into that story of, and then I said, that potentially can be enough to allow us to not get rid of, but soften that experience, soften it, to allow for a bit more space, potentially allow for a bit more compassion. And in that softening is where our freedom lies. Right? What tends to happen is we're so hooked into our thoughts that we re-trigger that 90-second thought. You even said it. Oh, you know what? To tell the truth, I've kind of dragged some of that into my next relationship, because they're very sticky, these thoughts, especially if we secretly feel that it's actually telling some truth about us. Like, oh yeah, on the surface, I look like this. People are telling me, yeah, well, John, but you're handsome. You're this, you're that. Well, I don't believe, how could you have problems? Because they're only looking at the surface version of you and not actually attuned to the reality that inside there's so many yous. There's so many different yous that are, I'm sure you had to overcome many of those voices to do this podcast, including, oh, who wants to hear us? Like, why? Men don't want to talk about mindfulness. Like, who's going to listen? Will, John, who's going to talk? Nobody's going to listen. Like,
we have a massive audience of 3 or 4 people, I think. Listen.
Exactly. And me and you are 1 and 2, John. So we have 1 fucking person listening.
That's right. I'm listening to myself, so that's right. So I just wanted, like you said, lay the groundwork. The groundwork is unless there's something you want to share with me, my guess is you're human.
Right.
B, we die at the end. So it does not matter how fabulous your life is. You could have been born with a silver spoon up your butt and every orifice. But regardless of that, that does not at any level change your relationship to heartbreak, confusion, heartache. You could, as Cassandra very vulnerably shared, something way beyond her control. She lost her birth parents at 17 months old. So what do you do with that? You can't change that. You can't make it better. And if you glide over it as if it doesn't matter, that's only going to probably be on the surface, because underneath, you use the word devastation. Underneath is that shaky feeling we have that we're all alone. And so the thing about relationship that's kind of tricky is it so easily can become every kind of relationship. So that means parental, love relationships, friendships. They so easily can unintentionally become codependent. We think that we are intertwined with each other in a healthy way, but if secretly we feel afraid that it's not going to be enough for us to be on our own, then we unintentionally lean on this false belief that we aren't okay, and that other people are going to fill us up in our not okay places. And then what happens is we get that honeymoon phase of being filled up, and it feels so yummy. And I'm like, oh, I want this forever. This is the best sex of my life. Like, for the first 5 days, that was the best sex of my life. And it's like, is that still what you're? Oh, okay, well. Here, call me when it's done, and not me, of course. I'm engaged. I'm a mindfulness teacher. You can't even imagine what goes on in my head. And but this is like, we're now looking at that reality of also the temptation to want to hold things so tightly that they don't breathe. Like, I found you. I have found you, my beloved. And it's like a musical, we want to hold that so tightly, but it's not organic, as it were. It's not really how life works. You might have a baby and go, oh my gosh, that is the cutest baby I've ever had in my life, or that ever existed. And then you're like, you know what? If only my baby could just stay like this forever. We can have heartbreak by watching our children grow up and like, no.
I get that all the time. I think Will, I don't think you were on our check-in recently, but I shared that with our one of our check-in meetings that we had. And I've got, my 5-year-old, my 3-year-old, and my 1-year-old. My 5-year-old is in the back of the truck. I'm driving her to school, and Tim McGraw's song comes on the radio, My Little Girl. And, I start tearing up, and my daughter asked me what's wrong. And I told her, I'm sad because you're getting older right before my eyes, and before I know it, you're going to be getting married to someone and moving on. And she said, yeah, I love our family like that too. She said something, I'm going to mess this up, but she said something like, love, I feel a pain in my heart, but it's a good pain. And I was like blown away that she said that as a 5-year-old. But I that's what I feel all the time. And Will and I have gone and done, I'll be completely transparent with you here, Elaine. We've gone and done psychedelic therapy. And on one of the psychedelic journeys that I was on, my kids came into my mind and into the experience. And I was mourning the loss of their babiness, right? As they get older, they're going to lose their innocence and they're going to become grown-ups. And even as a 5-year-old, I'm mourning the loss of my 5-year-old as a 3-year-old. And it's wild that heartbreak happens even though that person is still there in our lives. We're mourning almost a season of our lives, a season of their lives and a season of ours. So there's heartbreak there too, which I'm glad you brought up.
So what do we do with this? Like, how do we begin to mend this heart, or get over the grief, or is there a step-by-step process? Is it just time? Is it, do we really need, is how important it is to face, this incredible adversity coming from the heart, and also dealing with I love how you're talking about how the mind likes to get in the way and make it all personal. And and in your article, you're writing about, it's like, oh, if I only would have done this, and I've had those conversations too. It's like, oh, if it wouldn't have been this way or been that way, or if I would have done this thing differently, this would have happened maybe, and we could have stayed together. So let's go, let's dive into that. Like, what, how do we manage? How do we mend? You know,
Okay, well, I want to come back to something John just said that he said to his daughter, because that was really beautiful what you said. But what I thought your daughter was going to say when you said, "Oh, I'm mourning the loss of you. You're one day you're going to be this and that." I thought your daughter was going to say, "Dad, have you thought of practicing mindfulness? Like,
Exactly.
be here now, Dad."
Right.
Because so answer your question, Will, like the first step for all of us is awareness. And, sometimes, I don't know if you got this in your podcast, if it ever comes up, people would come up to me in the past, they'd say, "Oh, you're into awareness," like it's some hippie thing. You're like into awareness, aren't you? And I'm like, why? What are you into? Unawareness? And, and so in a way, John just very vulnerably shared with us that moment where we leave the present moment. Number one, we don't recognize that we get trapped in nostalgic feelings and in ideas and concepts and sentimentality. And it's all very much Hallmark cardy in the sense that we're trained to have a kind of concept about family and tenderness and all that. So it's really challenging to have awareness of it. I would even have said, like, John in that moment could notice, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. Like, my beautiful 5-year-old is here. She is here with me right now. How interesting that I can feel myself pulled out of the present moment. And what happens when I get pulled out of the present moment, how interesting it's being pulled to pain. Because sometimes when we look at, this comes back again to your question, we're like, this notion of autopilot that many of us unintentionally live. We live in autopilot. Yeah. And that autopilot idea, you probably talk about it here all the time, is, you have unawareness. Maybe you drove from point A to point B. For all you know, aliens abducted you partway through. You don't remember anything that happened. It's like, how did I get here? How did I get to McDonald's? My God, did I fly? What happened? So the challenge about living in autopilot, which seems kind of like a normal or even like a great survival tactic when life is so intense, is the mind, especially when the mood is a little bit low. So we could also have investigated, oh, John, what was there for you in that morning before you got in the truck? Like, was there another thing? You got an email from, like, what was your starting spot? So this is the same question, Will. Answer to, like, what's our starting spot? Like, we think this is just how I feel, but it's also really helpful for us to notice, what is my starting spot right now? Like, am I already feeling a bit low? Do I already feel a bit spongy? Maybe I don't have it. Maybe my job is uncertain. Maybe I'm anxious about money. And then this comes in too. So awareness allows us to be honest about our starting spot and recognize, oh, okay, I'm already feeling a little bit low or a bit open, tender in a challenging way. And the thing about autopilot is it's very opportunistic. So as soon as you space out and let your mind drift unawares, the tendency and the evidence supports this is that it drifts to the negative. Yeah. It doesn't just drift anywhere. It tends, especially if we're a little, that's why I said starting spot is significant. It tends to drift towards the negative, and then we feed a story, and then the next thing you know, it's a full-blown agony. We're in the movie rather than watching the movie. So the first thing is, for me, is always awareness. Like, I mean, I'm still human even after I've practiced for almost 10,000 hours. Turns out I'm still human. And
so when you say awareness, Elaine, just so awareness of those feelings, awareness of that negativity bias to go into the negative, awareness of what, just like, just to kind of
more specific. Thank you. Yeah. So let me touch on that. So now this also comes from Mindfulness Based Cognitive Therapy, and this is I think, really helpful awareness. What is it we're aware of? We want to check in with what thoughts are spinning right now. So John said, oh, you're going to grow up so fast, you're not going to be here, and then the next thing you know, you're going to marry some scumbag, and have to beat the hell out of him. Like, why is he driving a motorcycle? What?
No way.
I drove one. And your 5-year-old's like, what? It's like, is not taking. And he's like, but Daddy, I'm like, no. So we have to be aware of what thoughts have been triggered. That's the first thing. So we can just notice, okay, now I get some sense, because when we have awareness, and I'll go through all the different things, then my attitude is actually, it all makes sense. What's beautiful
because you've both talked about the idea of doing it wrong. Did I do it wrong? Did I get it wrong? I think it's really, really helpful, and in the spirit of kindness, to notice it all makes sense. Like, these hurt feelings, they make sense. If my thoughts are, I'm about to be abandoned by my 5-year-old, and I'm probably going to die alone, and my wife is probably going to find an even better Navy SEAL, and I don't even know what's going to happen. So that all can happen really quickly. So noticing thoughts, number one. Once you notice your thoughts, then check in with your emotions. So thoughts usually come as sentences, like you'll hear the chatter in your head. So just try to notice, and you could say the mind is like the sky, and you could view these thoughts that are swirling as the clouds that come and go, or you're lying on a riverbank and you could watch them as sticks and leaves floating by, or images on a movie screen. Those are some of our traditional metaphors that we look at as a way to give us ourselves a little bit of distance from those thoughts. That's how we check our thoughts, right? That's how we take our thoughts to court. So number one is that. Then we want to notice what emotions, we're talking about what is awareness. What emotions have fueled up this thought? It's very helpful just to label the emotions with maybe just one word. Then you're not getting into a big story. You're not personalizing. Okay, what's here? Sadness, grief, nostalgia, anger, resentment. Sometimes we're terrified to name these things because we feel they're going to engulf us. It takes bravery to turn, it's counterintuitive to turn towards these things and actually ask them, okay, what's here right now? Just what's here? It's okay. It's just a chemical consequence of these thoughts. Let me feel it. So the first one is let me know it. Like, let me know what's here. The second one is let me feel it. It's already here. Let me feel this. It takes tremendous bravery, my friends. This is not an act for people. It takes bravery to feel these emotions. They're painful. Let me feel it. Let me have that 90-second experience of these emotions. They're a communication. They're beautiful. They make sense. It's okay. They're welcome. It's all okay. And then we go to the body. We don't have to do it in this order necessarily, but all three. So it's thoughts. What thoughts are here? What emotions, labeling them with even just one word. And then we go to the body, because sometimes we don't know. I don't know what thoughts are here. I don't know. What emotions? My emotions. I haven't felt my emotions in 20 years. I don't know. So, but sometimes, maybe especially for men, it can be easier to check in with your body and just from a kind of reconnaissance mission, almost just check in and say, okay, I'm not here to analyze this data, but I'm just here to take notes. What am I feeling in my body? Oh, my jaw tightened, my belly tightened, my sphincter tightened. I'm holding my breath. My shoulders are up.
Shoulders, clenching your fist
jaw,
maybe or something.
clenching your
I don't know.
fist.
Right, yeah.
Those are great. Can be eye tightening. We all have our own little hidden ear tightening. We all have our own, depending on how cleverly masked we are even to ourselves, we all have our own way of experiencing it. So awareness, what thoughts are here, knowing I can ask myself eventually, what evidence am I using to prove that these are true? But right now, just noticing that's what's triggering me. What emotions are firing these thoughts up, and how is my body experiencing this, whether I want it to or not? That can be a very helpful way to release these difficult experiences. We're not trying to get rid of them. We're not trying to push them away. We are letting ourselves feel them, acknowledge them, be with them, let them have their moment, and then maybe notice. You'd have to check this out for yourself. Don't believe me. You have to notice, does that strangely soften the whole experience and allow it not to be gotten rid of, but give it more space?
And what if it's going on? Like, if there's someone out there listening and it's going on for like weeks, months, you're because the loss is so deep. Is it just enough to be aware and observe, or is there another step, or something else that from my experience, what helped me is someone had requested or suggested a book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I started working on that book, and I got in touch with myself. I started journaling, writing all this fucking rage and fucking pissed offness and all these feelings I had. And it was just like all that stuff that was in my head, and the feelings were coming out on the page. And in this case, it just helped me to kind of, and she's a brilliant writer, and her book is fucking fantastic. it helped me to exercise a lot of that. And I started to be able to get that objective experience that you had talked about, which I think is essential, right? I mean, just to kind of distance yourself from this. And then I just began to literally write my own story through these pages and through her guidance. So, I mean, I guess that was my kind of rescue. But what's when you're kind of flailing in the ocean of thoughts and feelings and awareness, it's like, is there a life raft that'll come along? Is there somebody that can potentially help you, whether it's like a therapist or, whether it's, something else, or we're just kind of left to our own devices and eventually we'll hit the shore and start again?
Well, to push back a little bit,
yeah, please.
I thought you very glibly said, is it enough just to notice thoughts, emotions, body sensations?
Yeah.
I would say to that, it's very glib to say that unless you actually go through that experience and find out for yourself, how did that help? Because sometimes people are still they try to use that to get rid of uncomfortable feelings. And then they go, I've noticed that thing and I felt that and I still feel all of that. So it's not that it gets rid of it. It's that it helps potentially us depersonalize and recognize that this is not a me. So the other, sorry, Julia Cameron is wonderful, but I'm going to also be daring and say something opposite here too. I think that I understand and appreciate why journaling these difficulties can be very helpful, but it also can be a way to entrench these stories unintentionally. Right. So I think that we really want to bring awareness in again to what is the purpose for journaling, because it could really be that F and fit. And
let me just say one thing, Elaine. Like the journaling, like this, I was not necessarily connecting the two. Like they just kind of happened. Because I was just looking for any kind of answer, any kind of distraction, or any kind of whatever in this circumstance, and I just picked up this book. I'm like, wow, this is really amazing, and so like I'm not necessarily linking, journaling as a way to heal. It was just like the path that I like, because I was so fucked up, like because of this loss, that I just like fell into it because I it was the only thing that I could really do or just, it just gave me something to do. You know what I mean?
So thank you. Okay. So thank you for putting it that way. So you've now given me a different window to look at this.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes we can dive right into something. You ask what else, sometimes that's too much. Like trauma can be too much to dive into and it just hurts. So what you did, so thank you so much for persisting with me to help me understand the story more accurately. You did something which within psychotherapy is called decentering. You recognize it didn't seem like it, but it actually was. You feeling this difficulty, it trapped you. And so you actually shifted your attention, at least the way you described it to me, and you externalized it. You allowed yourself, sometimes people do cutting, right? So there's something interesting about cutting, because it, as much as we don't like to talk about it or whatever, you see, it's like externalizing a pain that at least lets us feel like, oh, well, okay, like I see it, it's out here, it's not just in me trapped. So I hear you saying that you found a way to, in a way, be objective about this by putting it on paper and letting you see how much pain you were in. Because sometimes we don't let ourselves know how hard it is. So I totally agree with you that it can be a generous companion. So I am not at all saying journaling is not wonderful. I really just wanted to put in like noticing what am I doing with this moment of journaling? Am I using it as a way to entrench my suffering and that my feeling that I was victimized? Or is it a way for me to stand with myself and say, buddy or darling, I get it. This hurts so much. I'm here, and it's out on paper. It makes it more real. Maybe it felt like a fantasy, and then it lets you make it more real. And then we feel like, okay, it's not my imagination. This pain really, really hurt me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say there's just a way. I think we can dive into it and face it. So that's that Jill Bolte Taylor, like hanging in there with those emotions and seeing if we can just open the door of the monster in the closet and see, it's exposure therapy. That can be a way if you're ready, but if you're not ready or you're too traumatized, and some comments came out about, pain that's still there, that may not be the right mode to dive in, because that may not be very kind. I feel that, Will, what you just pointed to was you found the kindest path for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is more important than anything else I could say. It's like, if we're privileging kindness, then we are moving out of fight, flight, freeze. We're allowing for the space to be there, and we're not abandoning ourselves. That's hugely important to me.
Yeah.
Do not abandon yourself. When you have heartbreak, we tend to look for reasons why we screwed up. So we abandon ourselves and we say, you suck, you're disgusting. And, we badmouth ourselves. Picture this little person in us going, but I hurt so much right now and you're kicking the hell out of me. Like, I just need you to comfort me. So, sometimes, and what Colleen has said here about her husband's death and still devastated, it's a long time to be married to somebody and hope that you're just going to be able to pull that plug and move on. There's going to be thoughts and feelings that surface over and over. So what I appreciate about what you guys are doing with this podcast and the notion of mindfulness is, what else can we do but be with ourselves over and over and over and over and go, oh, this hurts. This hurts. If you can just be there and let that emotion come through, maybe that will help soften it. Or maybe you throw yourself into a joyful event. Sometimes we say it's really helpful when you're suffering to have a list of things that really bring you pleasure and a list of activities that give you a feeling of mastery or accomplishment. And when you feel really rotten, it's not a good time to make the list when you feel rotten. You need to make it when you feel
Yeah, right.
you feel, then you might look, you go, oh, cup of tea or walking the dog or calling my friend or going to a movie are things that make me feel better. So that can help with the decentering. And then when we also feel very low, we can not want to get out of bed or shower or brush our teeth. Washing our dishes can be an act of mastery or accomplishment in that moment.
There you go.
You look at that list and you go, oh yeah, right. Mowing the lawn makes me feel like I've actually done something. I'm back in life again. And you might think, but I don't want to mow the lawn right now. And then you have to be kind to say, come on, buddy. Go mow the lawn. It's okay.
We've talked a lot about mending the heart, and I have a feeling I know where this is going to go. It's going to go back to the mindfulness and being present in the moment. But as I discussed at the very beginning, Will and I both still have our parents, but inevitably, most likely, they're going to die before us, and that is going to be a heartbreak that we are going to have. How can we prepare ourselves for a heartbreak that is inevitably coming our way, whether it's the loss of a parent, the loss of a loved one somewhere else, or a failure of some sort? How do we prepare ourselves preemptively, if you will, prior to?
Well, you did kind of say it, and I'll my parents, my mother is 89. She has stage 3 cancer. My father's 94.
Wow.
You know what? It's, you say sorry, and I appreciate that because that's what we say. But coming back to the question that you asked, what has come for me of this is it really, really awakened me to every moment is precious. And before the cancer, it's easy to get irritated by small things. Oh, why are you giving me advice? I'm an old lady. You don't need to give me advice, Mom.
Right.
But instead, it's so softened everything in my heart. And now I notice that my ears and my heart and my mind are so attuned to the present. So this is my response to how to work with it, is I'm so here that I feel inside myself, at the very least, I'm not going to have any regrets. I'm not going to look back and say, oh my God, I should have had a V8. What the hell did I do?
Right. That's an old fucking reference. That's funny.
I'll tell you how old I am. Like, I really feel that the best way to deal with future heartbreak is to 100% be here now with as much love and awareness and humor. So we haven't talked about, we've manifested humor, but we haven't talked about the value of humor, which is like, we are all dead at the end. Sorry. We're all dead at the end. So it's not like our parents are going to go somewhere we're not going to go. I'm also actually involved in a program called Mindfulness Informed End of Life. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because something that I found really powerful to remember is, until you're actually dead, you're still alive. So sometimes we treat the dying as though they are not as with us. We start to treat them differently. And I've found it very helpful to remember they're doing their thing, until we don't have brain function anymore. There's still a relationship of some kind. It's also helpful to remember that one of the last senses that go for people who are dying is hearing and presence. So looking at mindfulness, just being able to be with people at the end, instead of clinging and no, don't go, we're able to bravely be there with them for this beautiful, it is beautiful, it's only going to happen once, this beautiful transition. And I found when I worked with somebody, a dear, dear, dear friend of mine who died, that was like a heartbreak. In the subway, I'd like burst into tears regularly, just like, oh my God, this is killing me. This person at the end, the last few hours, they completely lost touch with like even knowing who I was. And I was panicking because I thought, now what do I do? Like I don't know what to do. How do I help them? And I had this thought in my head, or my heart, I guess, just look at them with the eyes of love. Maybe they won't know who I am, but everybody knows what love looks like. You just know it. So if I can just fill my eyes with love, and all I'm saying, looking at, is calm, love, presence, that's the best I can do. And I feel like we're still going to feel grief. We're still going to feel heartbreak. There's nothing wrong with that. It's one of the colors on our palette. But the difference is, do we have to hold on to it, or can we recognize this is all actually a natural part of life? Your daughter's going to grow up. People will leave us. They will die. We will die. It's actually, sorry, but it's okay. It's okay. It's how it is.
I like how you mentioned like living with no regrets. I mean, I think it's so important, because then you're living life more fully, which you're honoring the living, right? And your life. Is it also helpful? I mean, what's the thought that came to me? Is it helpful to maybe honor them in some way continually, or you know what I mean? If they were like your mom, I don't know, always wanted you to do this or continue to do this. It's like, is that kind of helpful, or is that kind of keep us stuck, in that relationship, or because I'd imagine in some ways that in their passing, that relationship still goes on. I mean, we don't have the physical relationship, but we have almost that divine relationship with them, because it's weird that they're kind of there in some way. But that relationship might change, over time with them in that divine way. But I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense. But is there a way that does honoring help them? You know what I mean? Like by, being a good son and not saying the F word or something.
Well, then you're screwed already. So I think it's really important that there's not a rule, because clinging, if that's a word that anybody could relate to, that's like clinging is really what gives us suffering. And if we're clinging to an idea that, if I say fuck, my mother is going to roll over in her grave. Thankfully, she's heard me say it already. If I don't honor my mother or father, I don't love them. I think what's really important is to stay close to ourselves and honor the truth for ourselves. If it's a natural thing, if I naturally feel constantly like there's some beautiful presence there and I want to just be in touch with it, that's great. If it's a rule, then I'm already out of mindfulness. I'm already out of awareness. I've left that behind. I've clinging to a rule as though that is the response to life, rather than courageously saying we're all interconnected. We are none of us separate. It's not like that. Just because we don't understand the fullness of life and death does not mean that there isn't an interconnection. And I think that for me, when I rejoice in my heart, when I think of somebody, that's the honoring of them. If I try to hold myself back because I think they wouldn't like it, that to me is delusional. They're not here anymore. Sorry. You don't agree with me. Nobody has to agree with me. You asked me, like, this is my feeling. My feeling is be present. It's all about mindfulness. Be present to the truth of the emotion as it emerges. It could be a moment of grief. It could be a moment of joy. Whatever it is, we're not saying get out, only you're allowed in. We're saying this is what's here now. Can I be with this moment? now this is what's, oh, and that led to joy, and then that led to anger, and then that led to resentment. It's all okay. I think it's mostly about letting ourselves stay close to our hearts, to the technical of life, and trust it's going to emerge, and we can be there for that too. Can I be here for this moment, even though I don't want to be?
Yeah.
I would love to have you back for some follow-on episode on this a little bit more, to dig a little bit deeper. I know we're starting to run short on time, and I'd also love, I've discussed this with Will before, having an episode on something to the effect of mindfulness informed end of life. And I discussed that with my father about 6 months ago. And I think it would be fantastic to have an episode on that, and to have you back to discuss more on mending the broken hearts, because I know our listeners could benefit. I know Will and I could benefit. Everyone can benefit from it. So Elaine, it's been fantastic having you here with us as we start to come to the end of the episode. What have we not talked about? What would you like to share? And how can people find you if they're looking for you on social media, et cetera?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for your comments, for your willingness to come in and support Will and John in their wonderful, wonderful venture. That's why I'm here, because I really admired what I saw. And when I was reached out to, I thought, why would I not want to support this? This is awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. That's really, really, really beautiful. I do a billion different things within the mindfulness. And one of the things that I have coming up starting on February 7th is a online course I run through the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies called A Mindful Way Through the Creative Process. And what that is a 10-step project management course, interestingly, that uses structure, mindfulness, cognitive behavior therapy, and as a way to come up with any project at all and see it all the way through to completion where you let it go. And that has been an incredible, incredible experience. So many different people have come through that. And you can write me. Probably the easiest is to go to my website, www.elainesmookler, one word, and that's ELAINESMOOKLER.com.
Right.
And so feel free to just reach out to me if you want to connect more. And in terms of anything else we haven't talked about, it's really just, it's so helpful for us to welcome adversity as a way to open ourselves up when we can live not trying to protect the soft spot, but to really choose to welcome it. Then that is not only a gift to our own lives, it's a gift to our children, our spouses, our families, somebody you walk down the street who never will meet you again because it's written all over your face. That willingness and courageousness to live a noble life with openness, honesty, and from the heart. I don't see how anything is going to mend the broken heart of our world more than that is going to.
Yeah, that's perfect. We're actually, I'm glad you touched on that, the adversity being the gift, kind of seeing it through different eyes. We're having Marcus Aurelius Anderson on next week, who is a former Army infantry guy who has tremendous adversity, and he has embraced that adversity as a gift and has come a long way since then. That said, as I said before we started hitting record, Elaine, we wrap the show up with another grounding practice, and we would love it if you would honor us with that grounding practice that you mentioned before. We would love to go through it with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just noticed Jack's comment about self-pity. And I think that's really, really important to bring in, and I'll connect it to this practice. When we're hurt, it hurts. And that is the truth. And part of what is helpful for me is to ask myself, as much as this hurts, how does it benefit me to live my life as a victim of circumstance? And that takes a powerful mind to be able to recognize that I can, at some level, choose whether or not to go through my life feeling like a victim. Even sometimes terrible, terrible, terrible things happen to us, versus turning towards whatever comes and saying, is this what's going to stop me from living? No, I'm not going to let this do that. So coming to the practice, I'd like to invite us to do just a couple of minutes of mindful self-compassion. Something important here is I find touch, which is something many men perhaps might be uncomfortable with, but the invitation to possibly put a hand over that chestal area, the heart, so-called heart area, or on your cheek, or on your own head or forehead, it isn't just, I said earlier, Hallmark card. It is a way to help you induce the flow of oxytocin. So we talked about the flow of adrenaline and cortisol and some of those challenging chemical experiences. The oxytocin is a bonding chemical. So when you make a kind connection with yourself, it's extremely soothing and calming to the nervous system. You'd have to explore it. So I'm going to invite you, treat it as an experiment. Be a scientist of your own experience. If you want to experiment, placing a hand over that heart area or on your own cheek or anywhere that makes you feel like you are there with you, loving you. And I invite you, if you'd like, to allow your eyes to close or lower and soften your gaze. And maybe I'll bring in a visualization. Could you allow yourself to imagine that in your chest is a beautiful blazing sun, shining, beaming, radiant sun, and it is shining from the front and shining from the back. It is an unstoppable force of heat and light, and into that glowing, radiant space, can you invite an image of yourself right now in that space, or when you feel you're hurt, with a hand touching the body, making this connection, and maybe offering yourself these words of intention. I'll say some words, you use these or change them as you wish, my friends. May I be happy. May I stand with myself no matter what. May I honor myself in this moment in all of its gory glory. May I feel welcome. May I know that I belong to the trees and the wind and the sky and the seas. May I know that we are all interconnected. May I live in peace and ease. And before we close this, if you're willing, bringing in someone else and offering, may you be happy. May you know that you belong and are welcome. May you feel cherished exactly as you are. May we all live in peace and ease. And on an out breath, letting go of any stress or tension that's ready to flow out. It may not all be ready, but some of it might be. Let it go. Opening your eyes, raising your gaze, and maybe a little stretch. Moving into action. Sometimes these things feel so heavy.
I know.
You know what? I recommend a little chair dance. When I feel I dare you. Feel horrible when you're doing a little chair dance.
Exactly. Move that energy around.
I think that might be the second time we've done some dancing on this episode or on this show before. I love it. It always kind of loosens things up. We should. I am awful at dancing, but I will do it, and I'll have people make fun of me for it, and that's perfectly okay.
Being silly is underrated by far.
Yes, indeed. Elaine, this has been such a delight. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared, and thank you for being vulnerable. Will, thank you for you being vulnerable and sharing what you've shared today. I've really appreciated everything of this episode. And Will, I'll turn it over to you to shut it down.
I just want to say thank you, Elaine. This is a much needed conversation. I think it's a conversation that's probably not had enough out there in the world. So anyone that's listening, I mean, literally it pays even in these kind of circumstances where you're grieving a loss or divorce, to get mindful, and we have lots of different episodes about how to get mindful. We have meditations out there. We have a retreat coming up. So, there's lots of different touch points. So get involved, please. And I just want to, promote your class again, Elaine. So a mindful way through the creative process. This course is taking place virtually. So across the world, anyone that's listening, February 7th is with the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. Her class begins Tuesday, so I guess like 2 weeks from now, February 7th, and it's 6:30 to 9:30 Eastern Time. So I just want to
8.
Oh, sorry, 6:30 to 8 p.m. My bar, 6:30 to 8 p.m. I'm reading too fast here. And thank you, Elaine. Thank everyone for out there that's listening and sharing the show and taking a little screenshot and saying, hey, I become more mindful by listening to Men Talking Mindfulness. And we'll see y'all again very soon. And Elaine, anything else before we go?
Sending love to everyone. Thank you so much for caring about being present to your precious lives. We all need you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Elaine, hang tight after the closing here. We'll just have a couple of closing words together. But for everyone else, till next time, peace.
Peace.
Thanks.
Joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.